The woman who left the briefcase in my cab had not made a mistake, but I would not understand that until Vincent Hale looked me in the eye and called me by another woman's name. Rain chased the taxi through Midtown Manhattan, turning every traffic light into a red or green smear across the windows. I sat in the back seat with the briefcase pressed against my knees, listening to the driver complain about flooded intersections and people who forgot how to drive the moment the weather changed. 20 minutes earlier, a woman in a grey coat had rushed out of the cab outside Grand Central Terminal. She had left behind the slim black case, a wool scarf, and the faint scent of lavender. I had called after her. She had never turned around. The driver wanted to leave the case at the nearest police station, but I had opened the outer pocket just far enough to find an employee badge. Rebecca Sloan. Hale Dominion. West 47th Street. The address was only 6 blocks from the accounting firm where I had just completed a late final interview. A senior partner had been delayed by the storm, and I had waited nearly 2 hours because, at 28, with less than $900 left in savings, I could not afford to walk away from an opportunity. Returning a stranger's property felt like the one decent decision I could make in a month filled with bad ones. That was what I told myself when I asked the driver to stop in front of Hale Tower. The building rose above the street like a blade made of black glass, 60 stories of reflected lightning and cold white offices. Even at 10:30 at night, the lobby glowed brighter than noon. Men in dark suits crossed the marble floor without looking at one another. Security cameras followed every movement with quiet precision. I should have handed the briefcase to the front desk and left. Instead, the moment the revolving door closed behind me, the badge reader near the security desk flashed green. A guard looked at the name on his monitor and stood straighter. "Miss Sloan," he said. "Mr. Hale has been waiting." "I am not." A burst of thunder swallowed the rest. The guard touched the receiver in his ear and listened. "The outside firm confirmed your arrival. Executive floor. You are to go up immediately. There has been a misunderstanding." He was already speaking to a second guard while a private elevator opened behind him. The badge photograph on his screen appeared damaged, obscured by a grey bar across the face. I noticed it only because the same mark crossed the photograph on the physical badge. Someone had not merely scratched the card. Someone had corrupted the identification record. I should have insisted. Instead, the guard looked at me as though refusing would create more trouble than obeying. The elevator walls were brushed steel, polished enough to show my reflection. Wet brown hair. Navy coat from a department store clearance rack. Scuffed flats that had carried me through 2 interviews and 1 rejection in the same day. I looked nothing like a woman who belonged in Hale Tower. The doors closed. The elevator rose so smoothly that only the changing numbers proved I was moving. 12. 21. 34. My telephone showed no signal. I examined the badge again. Rebecca Sloan's face was almost invisible beneath the damaged surface, but her hair was dark, her jaw narrow, and her age appeared close enough to mine that a distracted guard might not question it, especially if the computer had already approved her. Beneath her name, 1 word had been printed in silver. Executive. The elevator stopped on the 58th floor. When the doors opened, silence met me first. No receptionist. No ringing telephones. Just a long hallway lined with glass walls and the distant murmur of men speaking behind closed doors. The carpet was so thick that my footsteps disappeared into it. I took 3 steps before a tall man emerged from a conference room. He wore a charcoal suit without a tie, the top button of his white shirt undone as if the night had already lasted too long. His dark hair was swept back from a face that looked composed rather than handsome, every line controlled, every expression withheld. He did not hurry. He did not need to. The 2 men behind him stopped when he stopped. That told me more about his authority than any title could have. His gaze moved from the briefcase to the badge, then to my face. "You are 9 minutes late," he said. His voice was quiet, but the hallway seemed to adjust around it. "Mr. Hale, I think," the Blackwood session was moved forward. "You will record the meeting, collect every telephone, and say nothing unless I ask you a direct question." He turned before I could answer. One of the men opened the conference room door for him. I stayed where I was, gripping the briefcase with both hands. "Mr. Hale." This time he looked back. His eyes were grey, not warm grey, but the color of the river before a storm. "I am not Rebecca Sloane." For 1 second, nothing moved. Then his attention sharpened. Not surprise. Calculation. He looked at the badge again, at the briefcase, and at the rainwater darkening the shoulders of my coat. "Who are you?" "Claire Bennett. A woman left this in my cab. I came to return it." One of the men behind him moved a hand toward the inside of his jacket, but Vincent lifted one finger. The movement was almost casual. The man stopped. "You opened it?" Vincent asked. "Only the outside pocket. I needed an address." "And you came here alone?" "Yes. At 10:30 at night. I had just finished an interview nearby." His eyes stayed on mine long enough for me to hear the rain striking the windows at the far end of the hall. "People do not usually enter this building by accident, Miss Bennett. Then your security team should ask more questions." The words escaped before good judgment could catch them. One of the men lowered his gaze, hiding what might have been a reaction. Vincent did not smile, but something changed in his expression, a small interruption in the cold surface. "Give me the case." I held it out. He did not take it immediately. "Did the woman say anything before she left the cab?" "No." "Did she appear frightened?" I remembered the grey coat, the quick steps, and the way she had glanced once at the taxi window before disappearing into the rain. She looked as though she was trying not to be followed. Vincent took the briefcase. The hallway lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then every screen and overhead panel went dark. The windows became black mirrors. The building seemed to inhale around us. Emergency lights should have come on. They did not. Somewhere beyond the glass walls, a lock clicked into place. Then another. My breathing sounded too loud in the darkness. Vincent's hand closed around my elbow, firm enough to guide me but careful enough not to hurt. "Stay beside me," he said. A radio came to life near the conference room. Static filled the hallway, followed by a man's distorted voice. "The woman has the token. Do not let Hale reach her." Vincent released my arm. In the weak blue glow of an emergency telephone, I saw him turn toward me. For the first time, the most controlled man in the building looked uncertain. "Claire," he said softly, "what exactly did Rebecca Sloane give you?" For 3 seconds, I could hear nothing but the blood moving through my ears and Vincent Hale asking what Rebecca Sloane had given me, as though the answer might decide whether either of us saw daylight. "Nothing," I whispered. She did not even speak to me. The emergency telephone cast a narrow strip of blue light across his face. Behind him, the men from the conference room had moved into the hallway, their outlines barely visible against the glass. One of them spoke into a radio, but only static answered. Vincent extended his hand. "Your purse." "Excuse me. If Rebecca intended for you to bring something into this building, it may not be inside the briefcase." His voice remained calm, but the darkness had changed him. Every word sounded measured against a danger I could not see. I pulled my purse from my shoulder and held it against my coat. "You are not searching my belongings." "Then search them yourself." The building groaned softly around us as the storm pressed against 60 stories of glass. I opened the purse under the emergency light. Wallet. Telephone. Lip balm. A folded resume. A pack of mints from the accounting firm. Nothing unusual. Then my fingers touched something cold inside the side pocket. I froze. "What is it?" Vincent asked. I pulled out a small silver object. It was no longer than 2 inches, flat on one side, with a black stripe through the center. I had never seen it before. Vincent stepped closer, and The men behind him went silent. "That is not a key," he said. "It is an encrypted security token." "How did it get into my purse?" "Rebecca put it there." "She was never near my purse." The memory returned before I finished speaking. The taxi had stopped suddenly near Lexington Avenue. Rebecca had reached back through the open door as though she had forgotten something. Her hand had brushed the seat beside me. I had assumed she was grabbing her scarf. Vincent studied the token in my palm. "She knew you would find the briefcase. She knew you would bring it here." A lock released somewhere to our right with a heavy mechanical sound. One of the men turned toward it. "Sir, the service corridor is opening." "It should not be," Vincent replied. The radio crackled again. This time there was no voice, only 3 short bursts of static followed by silence. Vincent took the token and placed the briefcase in my hands. "We are moving." "Where?" "Somewhere the building cannot listen." He led us through a glass door and into a narrow corridor lit by red floor lights. The 2 men followed for several yards before Vincent stopped. "Daniel, secure the executive level. Owen, find out who changed the internal controls." Daniel looked at me. "And Miss Bennett?" "She stays with me." No one questioned him. That should have made me feel safer. It did not. Vincent guided me through a stairwell and down 1 floor. Without the elevator, the silence felt larger. My wet shoes slipped slightly on the concrete steps, and he slowed without commenting. At the landing marked 57, he pressed the silver token against a blank section of wall. A hidden reader illuminated, followed by a narrow door. Rebecca had access to this. I asked. "No. This token was scheduled to activate tomorrow under board-level authority. It was never intended for an assistant." "Then why was it linked to her arrival?" Vincent did not answer. The door opened into a windowless room lined with steel cabinets. A long table stood in the center beneath a battery-powered light. The air smelled faintly of paper, dust, and cold metal. Vincent closed the door behind us. This room is isolated from the building's main network. It has no cameras, no microphones, and no wireless connection. The archive uses a separate encrypted hardline that can only be activated from inside. You have a room in your office that your own building cannot monitor. I learned a long time ago not to confuse privacy with trust. He placed the token on the table. The black stripe illuminated. A cabinet at the far wall clicked open. Neither of us moved. "Did you do that?" I asked. "No, we approached together." Inside the cabinet were rows of numbered files, all arranged with perfect precision except for one empty space near the center. A label beneath it read Project Ashfall. The briefcase in my hand suddenly felt heavier. Vincent opened it for the first time. Inside were no personal belongings, no laptop, and no ordinary documents. There was only a black folder bearing the same words. Project Ashfall. Vincent stared at it as though Rebecca had placed a living secret between us. "What is this?" I asked. "Something that should not exist." He reached for the folder. I moved it away. His eyes rose to mine. "You entered my building carrying stolen property. Someone connected to your company planted it on me. Rebecca Sloan is not an employee of Hale Dominion." The answer landed colder than the room. "Your security guard knew her name. Her appointment was inserted into tonight's schedule through an outside staffing firm. I had never met her. Then someone also gave her access to a board-level archive." "Yes." His answer was quiet. "And that means the breach began inside Hale Dominion." The light above us flickered. I opened the folder before he could stop me. The first pages showed corporate transfers between companies I had never heard of. The amounts ranged from $50,000 to more than $4 million. Routing numbers. Trust accounts. Political consulting fees. Charitable grants that appeared to circle back into private holdings. I had spent 7 years studying financial records, first in college and then in audit work that paid too little and demanded too much. I knew what manufactured complexity looked like. This was not accounting. It was camouflage. These transfers were designed to disappear, I said. Vincent stood across from me, unreadable. Close the file. Why? Because you do not understand what you are reading. I understand that 3 foundations transferred money to the same shell company under different names. I turned another page. I understand that someone routed payments through accounts registered in Delaware, Nevada, and the Cayman Islands. I understand that your signature appears at the bottom. His jaw tightened. Close it. Then I saw the photograph clip behind the transaction log. 2 men stood outside a courthouse beneath a winter sky. One was younger, but unmistakably Vincent. The other wore a brown overcoat and the tired smile I had seen in family photographs my entire life. My hands went numb. That is my father. Vincent looked at the photograph, and something passed through his expression too quickly for me to name. Recognition. Regret. Fear. His name was Thomas Bennett, I said. He died 6 years ago. I know who he was. The room seemed to tilt beneath me. Why is he in this file? Vincent looked toward the sealed door as though calculating how much truth it could contain. Before he answered, a screen hidden inside the cabinet turned on. White letters appeared against a black background. Project Ashfall accessed. External release sequence activated. Time remaining, 5 hours, 59 minutes, and 48 seconds. I watched the numbers begin to fall. What happens when it reaches 0? I asked. Vincent did not look at the screen. He looked at me. The dedicated hard line sends everything in that archive to a list of outside recipients. Then stop it. I cannot stop it without completing the authentication sequence. For the first time since I had entered Hale Tower, his control cracked. Not loudly. Just enough for the truth to show through. Someone did not mistake you for my assistant, Claire. Someone selected you because Thomas Bennett was your father. The countdown gave us 6 hours to decide whether Vincent Hale would lose his empire, but the first secret it exposed was that my father had helped him map the corruption inside it. I stared at the screen until the numbers blurred. 5 hours, 58 minutes, 12 seconds. Then 11. Then 10. The machine did not care that Thomas Bennett had been dead for 6 years. It did not care that I had spent those years believing his final job had been ordinary, respectable, and entirely separate from men like Vincent. Tell me everything, I said. Vincent closed the black folder and placed one hand over it. There is no version of everything that fits inside 6 hours. Then begin with the photograph. Your father worked for Hale Dominion. Doing what? Financial compliance. A laugh escaped me, sharp and empty. My father spent his life warning me that compliance departments existed to protect companies from people who told the truth. That was one of the reasons I hired him. You hired him. 10 years ago. The answer struck harder than the thunder beyond the walls. My father had died when I was 22. I remembered sorting through his apartment afterward, stacking tax returns, insurance papers, and old birthday cards into neat piles because neatness was easier than grief. Hale Dominion had appeared nowhere. Why did he hide it from me? I asked. Because he believed distance would keep you safe. Safe from what? Vincent looked at the sealed door. From the organization my family created before Hale Dominion became a public company. He spoke without pride. The Hale family built its power through ports, unions, private agreements, and fear. The corporation became legitimate on paper long before every part of it became legitimate in practice. I stepped between him and the folder. You keep using your world as though it explains everything. It explains some things. It excuses nothing. Something tired moved beneath his voice. Thomas created a second ledger because he knew the public records could be rewritten. I opened the folder again. This already looks like a secret ledger. It is the one someone wants the world to see. He turned several pages until he found a column of reference numbers printed beside the transfers. To me they looked random. To him they seemed familiar. Your father never trusted a clean record, Vincent said. He believed the truth survived. Through repetition. Every important transaction had a mirror. Where? Hidden inside harmless entries. I looked down at a $200 donation to a literacy program in Queens, then at a transfer of $3 million to a consulting company in Nevada. You expect me to believe these are connected? I expect you to determine whether they are. Why me? Because Thomas designed the system, and someone believed you could complete what he started. He moved to the far side of the table, leaving the folder between us. Help me authenticate the archive, and I will answer every question you ask. You have already lied by omission. Then set the terms yourself. The offer sounded simple. It was not. Men like Vincent did not surrender control. They rented the appearance of it. No guards in this room, I said. No one takes my telephone. No one prevents me from leaving when the building opens. Agreed. You answer directly. No legal language. No convenient silence. His eyes held mine. Agreed. And if the file proves that you were responsible for what happened to my father, I will not help you bury it. For the first time, he hesitated. Only for a breath. Agreed. We began with the smallest transfers. My father had taught me that large lies often depended on details too boring to notice. I arranged the pages by date while Vincent searched the archive for matching foundation records. The storm pressed against the building, but inside that sealed room, time became paper, ink, and the red numbers falling on the screen. 5 hours, 23 minutes. 5 hours, 2 minutes. Each transfer contained a 3-digit reference. At first, the numbers seemed unrelated. Then I noticed that the first digit matched the month while the remaining 2 pointed to lines in public charitable filings. We found concealed names inside expense descriptions, account locations inside donation totals, and approval dates hidden in scholarship records. My father had built a map beneath the bookkeeping. He was documenting your organization, I said. He was documenting people inside it. For the government. For me. I looked up. Why would he trust you? Vincent opened another cabinet and removed a thin blue binder. Because I asked him to help me dismantle the parts of Hale Dominion that should never have survived. You were the chief executive officer. I inherited the title at 26. I did not inherit control. That sounds convenient. It was humiliating. The honesty in his answer stopped me. He leaned against the cabinet, the battery light cutting shadows beneath his eyes. The board saw me as a signature. The older partners controlled the accounts, the contracts, and the people who ensured that difficult questions disappeared. Thomas was the first person who told me exactly what I was. And what was that? A well-dressed prisoner. I wanted to dismiss him. Instead, I remembered the way every man in the hallway had obeyed his smallest gesture. Power and freedom were not the same thing. My father used to say that. I turned back to the numbers. Near the middle of the ledger, the pattern changed. The mirrored entries no longer pointed to names. They pointed to letters. I wrote them across a blank sheet. A-S-H-N-F-A del Yel. Beneath the final transfer was a sequence of 6 dates. One was my birthday. Another was the day my mother died. The last was the date of my father's accident. My hand stopped moving. He made the authentication personal, I said. He made it dependent on you, Vincent replied. The silver token brightened on the table. A narrow compartment opened inside the cabinet, revealing an old digital recorder. My father's initials were carved into the back. I had seen those letters on lunch boxes, toolkits, and the inside covers of books he never wanted me to lose. T.B. I pressed play. Static filled the room. Then his voice emerged, older and more tired than I remembered, but unmistakably his. If this recording has opened, then the first ledger has been found. Vincent, listen carefully. Project Ashfall contains 2 stories. One will make you look guilty. The other will prove who wrote that story and why. I covered my mouth. Vincent did not move. My father continued. The second layer can only be opened by Claire Bennett. I used a recorded biometric reference and personal information no ordinary intruder should possess. If she is hearing this, then I failed to keep her outside of it. The recorder clicked softly, but the message was not finished. Claire, I am sorry. I wanted you to have an ordinary life. I wanted your greatest problems to be rent, work, and whether you called your father often enough. I was wrong to believe silence could protect you. My vision burned, but I refused to look away from Vincent. Then my father's voice changed. The softness disappeared. Vincent, if my daughter ever hears this, it means you failed to keep your promise. The recording ended. The countdown continued. For hours, 31 minutes, 6 seconds. I lowered the recorder slowly. What promise? I asked. Vincent looked at the floor before meeting my eyes. To protect you from the people who caused his death. Protection without permission is still control, I said, and for the first time that night, Vincent Hale had no answer prepared. The recorder sat between us, silent now, while the countdown continued above the cabinet. For hours, 29 minutes, 40 seconds. My father had trusted Vincent with my safety. Vincent had accepted that trust. And somehow I had spent 6 years believing Thomas Bennett had died in an ordinary accident while the man standing across from me had known there was nothing ordinary about it. Tell me what happened, I said. All of it. Vincent placed both hands on the edge of the steel table. Your father discovered that 3 members of the Hale Dominion board were moving money through charitable foundations. The transfers funded political influence, private surveillance, and businesses created to pressure anyone who challenged them. Marcus Reed? I asked. He controlled the financial network, but Thomas believed he was not acting alone. Did my father contact the authorities? He tried. The first investigator he approached warned Marcus before the meeting could occur. The room felt colder. So my father came to you. He came to me because my name appeared on every document, even when I had not approved the transaction. He believed Marcus was preparing to make me responsible for the entire operation. Vincent looked at the black folder. Project Ashfall was Thomas's solution. One visible record. One hidden record. If Marcus released the first, the second would reveal how the evidence had been manufactured. Then why did nobody see the second record 6 years ago? His silence lasted too long. Because Thomas did not complete the release process. I heard my father's voice again in my memory, asking whether I had enough gas in my car, reminding me to check the locks on my apartment windows, pretending his concern was ordinary. What happened the night he died? I asked. Vincent's eyes shifted toward the recorder. He called me shortly after midnight. He said someone had entered his office and copied part of the ledger. He wanted to move you out of New York before he completed the archive. Where was I supposed to go? Boston. A temporary apartment had been arranged. I never heard about it. He planned to tell you the next morning. The next morning had brought 2 police officers to my door instead. They had spoken gently. They had used phrases like sudden loss and unfortunate circumstances. I had remembered every word except the ones that mattered. Was Marcus responsible? I asked. I believe he arranged the conditions that led to your father's death. Belief is not proof. No, did you investigate? For 6 years. And what did you find? Missing security footage. Altered maintenance records. A witness who changed his statement. Payment routed through a company connected to Marcus. But no direct evidence. Not enough to accuse him without warning him first. I stared at Vincent. You command an entire building with one look, but you could not confront your own financial officer. Power is not the same as certainty. If I accused Marcus without proof, he would disappear behind attorneys, board protections, and people who owed him favors. Everyone connected to Thomas would become visible. Including me. Especially you. He opened the blue binder and turned it toward me. At first I saw ordinary records. Tuition assistance. Medical grants. Loan adjustments. Then I recognized the names. Mine. My mother's. The community college where I had completed my first accounting courses. The hospital that had treated my mother during her final year. What is this? I asked, though I already knew. Your father created a limited protection fund through an independent trust. It lasted 18 months. After that, I continued it through programs that did not carry the Hale name. My throat tightened. The scholarship. Yes. The charitable payment applied to my mother's hospital balance. Yes. The refinancing program offered to me after graduation. Yes. Each answer felt like another wall closing around the life I thought I had built myself. The accounting interview, I said. Vincent did not respond immediately. Was that you too? The firm is partly owned by a Hale subsidiary. I asked that your application receive a fair review. I did not instruct them to hire you. I stepped away from the table. You arranged for me to be near this building tonight. I arranged an interview. I did not arrange Rebecca, the briefcase, or the shutdown. How many parts of my life did you touch? Only when I believed intervention was necessary. Necessary to whom? My voice stayed quiet, but it carried more anger than shouting ever could. You watched me struggle while deciding which problems were serious enough for your invisible hand. You paid debts I never asked you to pay. You placed opportunities in my path and called it protection. I kept my promise to Thomas. No. You kept me manageable. Vincent's expression changed then. Not anger. Something closer to shame. You are right. The word stopped me. Men like him were not supposed to surrender ground so easily. I told myself that remaining hidden respected your freedom, he continued. In truth, it allowed me to control the risk without confronting what that control cost you. You do not receive credit for understanding it now. I am not asking for credit. Then what are you asking for? Enough time to finish what Thomas began. After that, you decide what happens to the file and to me. The countdown showed 4 hours, 2 minutes. I returned to the table because anger could wait, but the clock would not. We examined the final entries in my father's ledger. One group of transfers carried the code RER beside every payment link to Marcus. A person? I asked. Or an account? Vincent searched the binder for Marcus's personal disclosures and found an old foundation document listing family beneficiaries. His wife's name appeared first. Beneath it was a child born in Connecticut. Rebecca Elise Reed. The date of birth matched the confidential profile attached to the employment file for Rebecca Sloan. I turned the page toward Vincent. Sloan is not her real surname. His eyes narrowed as he read. Rebecca is Marcus's daughter. The security token suddenly illuminated again. A message appeared on the hidden screen. Secondary layer available. Identity confirmation required. Beneath it, a live video window opened through the archive's encrypted hardline. The woman from the taxi stood in a dim room, still wearing the grey coat. She looked directly into the camera. Claire, Rebecca said, do not let Vincent complete the final authorization. My father is already inside the building. Rebecca's warning changed the room before either Vincent or I moved, because the moment she said her father was inside the building, every locked door around us stopped feeling like protection and started feeling like part of his plan. The video trembled as Rebecca glanced over her shoulder. Behind her, a narrow window showed rain moving sideways beneath a yellow streetlight. "Where are you?" Vincent asked. "Somewhere Marcus cannot reach me yet." "How did you activate Project Ashfall?" "I did not activate it alone." Her eye shifted toward me. "Claire did." "I carried a briefcase into a building," I said. "You selected me because of my father." "I selected you because Thomas designed the final layer around you. Your biometric record, your family history, your memories. My father spent 6 years trying to open it without you." The countdown continued above her image. 3 hours, 56 minutes, 20 seconds. "Why tonight?" I asked. "Because Marcus is moving against Vincent." Blackwood was only a code placed on the calendar. The real meeting is a transfer of corporate control. Vincent's expression hardened. "Who is with him?" 7 board members. 2 outside attorneys. An interim security director appointed by the acting chair. "Daniel still controls the East Station," Vincent said. "Not for long." As though summoned by his name, Daniel's voice came through the sealed room's intercom. "Mr. Hale, Marcus Reed has entered the executive floor with members of the board. He has override authorization signed by the acting chair." Vincent pressed the intercom control. "Where are you?" "East Security Station. Owen is restoring the internal cameras. Marcus is requesting your presence in the main conference room." "Request denied." Daniel paused. "He says refusal will be treated as evidence that you have lost operational control." The speaker clicked off. Rebecca leaned closer to her camera. "He needs Vincent in front of the board before the file releases. If Project Ashfall becomes public while Vincent is still chief executive officer, Marcus can blame every transfer on him and present himself as the man who discovered the fraud." "And the second layer?" I asked. "Marcus believes it was never completed." "Was it?" "Thomas completed enough to prove that the visible ledger was manufactured, but the final evidence is divided into 3 archives. Your identity opens the review system. Vincent's corporate authorization can approve a combined release." Vincent looked at the token. "That is why you warned Claire not to allow me to authorize it. Once the archives combine, the authorized executive can determine which package is released. You believe I would delete the evidence against myself." Rebecca's face tightened. "I believe every powerful man thinks his reasons are different." Vincent did not defend himself. I understood then why Rebecca had chosen me. She did not trust Vincent, and she feared Marcus. She needed someone with no loyalty to either man. "What does your father want from you?" I asked. Rebecca looked down. "He wants me to confirm that Vincent approved the accounts. He created employment records under the surname Sloan so I could enter the building without exposing our connection. When I found Thomas's notes, I realized Marcus had been using me to complete the frame." "So you left the briefcase in?" "My cab. I followed you for 2 weeks first." The admission sent a cold line down my back. "You knew about the interview." "Marcus knew. He approved the Hale subsidiary's hiring list." I looked at Vincent. The opportunity he had quietly arranged had become the path Marcus used to reach me. Protection had opened the door to danger. Vincent seemed to understand the same thing. "Claire," Rebecca said, "the 3rd archive contains direct authorization records from my father's office. If you release that archive with Thomas's mirror ledger, Marcus falls. If Vincent combines all 3, he can control what survives. And if I release everything, Hale Dominion could collapse before investigators separate legitimate divisions from corrupted ones. Thousands of employees could lose their income. Foundations could be frozen. Marcus would fall, but Vincent would fall with him." The screen went dark before I could respond. A message replaced Rebecca's face. "Connection terminated." Then the hidden door unlocked. Vincent stepped toward it, but I caught his sleeve. "That could be Marcus." "It is." "How do you know?" "Because he wants us to believe we still have choices." The door opened 3 inches and stopped against the manual safety lock. Marcus Reed's voice entered through the gap, calm and polished. "Vincent, the board is waiting." I had seen Marcus only in annual reports. Silver hair. Careful smile. The kind of face companies placed beside words such as stability and trust. In person, his voice carried the confidence of someone who had spent years making his decisions appear inevitable. "Miss Bennet," he continued, "I am sorry you were brought into this. Your father would have wanted you protected. Do not use my father to speak to me." A brief silence followed. "Thomas was a good man," Marcus said. "He became confused about records he did not fully understand. He built those records. He built a weapon and placed it in the hands of a young man desperate to preserve his inheritance." Vincent's voice turned colder. "Leave the door." Marcus laughed softly. "That tone worked when the building belonged to you." A thin tablet slid through the opening and stopped on the floor. Its screen showed the main conference room. 7 people sat beneath long ceiling lights, files arranged before them. On the wall behind Marcus's empty chair was a proposed resolution removing Vincent as Chief Executive Officer for misconduct and incapacity. "Sign the resignation," Marcus said, "and Miss Bennet leaves before sunrise. Refuse, and the board receives Project Ashfall exactly as Thomas prepared it." "You mean exactly as you altered it," I replied. "You are an auditor between positions, Miss Bennet. Be careful about mistaking instinct for evidence." I picked up the tablet. "Rebecca Reed is a witness." The silence outside the door became absolute. Marcus recovered quickly. "My daughter is troubled." "Your daughter found the second ledger." "My daughter has been manipulated." "By whom?" "The same man who manipulated your father." Vincent did not react, but Marcus wanted me to see him as the center of every loss. That was his method. He did not erase the truth. He rearranged it until blame pointed where he needed. "Give me 10 minutes, I said. "For what?" Marcus asked. "To decide which version of your life becomes public." I closed the door and engaged the safety lock. Vincent watched me return to the table. "You have a plan," he said. "I have 3 archives and 2 men who believe the only choices are total release or total deletion." I inserted the silver token into the cabinet. The screen requested a voice sample, compared it with the biometric reference my father had recorded, and then displayed 3 personal verification questions. The street where I learned to ride a bicycle. The name of my first dog. The song my father played every Sunday morning. I answered each one. 3 sealed evidence packages appeared on the screen. The first contained the manufactured ledger. The second contained my father's mirror records. The third contained authorization codes and internal instructions from Marcus Reed's office. Beneath them were options Thomas had designed himself: combined release, independent release, or protected manual review. I did not need to break into the system. My father had given the authenticated reviewer the power to keep the evidence separate. My work as an auditor allowed me to compare the document manifests, verify the time stamps, and confirm that each package could stand on its own. "Rebecca was wrong about one thing," I said. "We do not have to combine them." I selected protected manual review. The countdown paused at 3 hours, 38 minutes, and 9 seconds. A message warned that the hold would expire after 3 hours unless the evidence was transferred to independent recipients. I paired Marcus's authorization archive with the matching sections of my father's mirror ledger. I left the manufactured ledger sealed and placed Vincent's genuine approvals in a separate review package under an authentication phrase known only to me. Vincent stared at the screen. "You can expose Marcus without clearing my name." "Yes." "And you can still release the evidence involving me later." "Yes." Outside, Marcus struck the door once with his palm. "Your time is over." I looked at Vincent. The most powerful man in the city no longer controlled the file, the board, or the woman standing across from him. "What do you want from me?" he asked. "The truth," I said. without your attorneys deciding which parts one deserve. The truth Vincent gave me was worse than innocence and better than guilt, because he had not created Marcus Reed's system, but he had protected Hale Dominion long enough for parts of that system to survive. Outside the archive, Marcus continued demanding an answer. Inside, Vincent opened the blue binder and placed every relevant authorization record in front of me. No attorneys, he said. No omissions. His name appeared on accounts that should never have existed. Some signatures had been copied. Others were genuine. He had approved confidential settlements that prevented former employees from speaking publicly. He had redirected contracts away from businesses Marcus controlled without revealing the criminal structure behind them. He had closed illegal operations quietly instead of exposing them, telling himself that fewer people would suffer if the empire changed without collapsing. You chose stability over accountability, I said. Yes. Even after my father died. His eyes lowered. Especially after Thomas died. I believed open conflict would expose everyone he cared about. So you became cautious. I became afraid and called it strategy. That answer mattered because it cost him something to say it. I did not forgive him. I did not trust him completely. But for the first time, I believed he might value the truth more than his control over it. We spent nearly 2 hours comparing authorizations, timestamps, board minutes, and foundation records. I gathered the evidence into 3 clear groups. Marcus's authorization trail. My father's mirror ledger. Vincent's genuine approvals and concealed settlements. The first group could remove Marcus from power. The second could restore my father's name. The third could destroy the public version of Vincent Hale. He watched me organize them without attempting to interfere. At 3:45 in the morning, I contacted an outside attorney listed in my father's release instructions. She confirmed the secure delivery process and opened protected submission channels to federal financial investigators, the state attorney general, and an independent forensic accounting firm. Only then did I look at Vincent. Open the door. He turned toward the lock. Marcus has the board outside. Good. They should hear this together. He entered a code, and the steel door slid open. Marcus stood at the end of the corridor with 2 attorneys and 4 board members behind him. Daniel and Owen waited near the East Security Station, their faces tense but controlled. No one moved toward us. No one needed to. The danger in that hallway was made of information, not force. Marcus adjusted his silver cuff links. Have you finally explained to Miss Bennett how thoroughly you used her father? He explained what he did, I said. Now you will explain what you did. Marcus offered me the patient smile of a man speaking to someone he had already dismissed. You are grieving, Miss Bennett. That makes you vulnerable to suggestion. I raised the tablet. Your office authorization codes are attached to 37 transfers that were altered after my father recorded them. The smile remained, but his eyes changed. Codes can be copied. Yes. That is why Thomas created a mirror ledger containing timestamps and verification records from the original banking servers. I turned the screen toward the board. The visible file says Vincent approved every transfer. The hidden file shows that your office changed the approval chain days later. One of the board members stepped closer. Has that been independently verified? Not yet, I said. That is why the records are being submitted through protected channels to federal investigators, the state attorney general, outside counsel, and an independent forensic accounting firm at the same time. No single person will control the evidence. Marcus's calm finally cracked. You have no authority to distribute company records. Your system placed them in an archive created by my father and authenticated to me. The authorities can determine what I was legally permitted to disclose. He looked at Vincent. Stop her. The entire hallway seemed to wait. Vincent could have taken the tablet. He could have ordered Daniel to close the doors. He could have chosen his company over the truth one more time. Instead, he stepped away from me. No, he said. One word. Quiet. Final. Marcus stared at him. Everything your family built will be examined. Then it should survive examination. And if it does not? Vincent looked at the files in my hands. Then it was never worth preserving. I released the package containing Marcus's authorization trail. The screen confirmed secure delivery to the independent recipients. I sent the matching sections of my father's mirror ledger next, along with his recording and the original verification records. The third package remained sealed under the authentication phrase I had created. Marcus saw it. "You are protecting him," he said. "No," I replied. "I am refusing to let you choose the timing or limits of his accountability." Rebecca's face appeared again on the wall monitor, this time through the building's restored network. Daniel had traced her secure connection and arranged for outside counsel to remain on the call. She looked exhausted, but her voice did not shake. "The board should know that my father instructed me to enter Hale Tower under a false surname and confirm Vincent's signatures. I have preserved every message and sent copies to counsel." Marcus turned toward the screen. "Rebecca, end this call. You told me loyalty meant protecting family," she said. "You never told me who I was protecting them from." The board chair removed his glasses and placed them on the conference table. "Mr. Reed, your access and executive authority are suspended pending independent review. You will remain separated from company systems while counsel determines the next steps." Marcus began to object, but the attorneys beside him were already examining the records on their tablets. His power did not vanish with a dramatic sound. It left quietly, one person at a time, as the people around him stopped waiting for his permission. Daniel escorted Marcus to a monitored conference room while outside counsel contacted the appropriate authorities. The board members remained on the executive floor to preserve documents and record formal statements. Rebecca stayed on the screen while independent security arranged a safe location where she could speak with investigators. Before the connection ended, she looked at me. "Thomas knew you would find another choice. I wish he had trusted me while he was alive." "So do I." The next hour passed in signatures, recorded statements, and confirmation calls. The automatic release remained paused while the independent attorney assumed legal custody of the archive. By the time the last secure receipt arrived, the storm had weakened and the first grey light of morning had begun to gather beyond the glass. Manhattan emerged beneath us in silver streets and pale rooftops. Vincent and I stood alone in the conference room where the night had begun. His proposed resignation remained on the table, unsigned. "Marcus is finished," he said. "Not yet. Investigations take time. You stopped his release. I stopped his version of it. I placed the sealed third package before him. This still contains your approvals. What do you want? An independent investigation with no Hale employee controlling it. A public accounting of every illegal operation that can be disclosed without harming witnesses. A restitution fund for employees, families, and communities harmed by the company. My father's name attached to the truth, not used in a public relations campaign. And if I refuse, the package goes to the same independent recipients." He looked through the windows at the city he had ruled through silence. Then he signed an authorization surrendering operational control of the investigation to outside counsel and an independent committee. "Anything else?" "Yes. Stop deciding what protection looks like for other people. Ask them." 3 months later, I returned to Hale Tower through the front entrance using a badge with my own name. I was not Vincent's assistant. An independent board had appointed me interim director of the Restitution Foundation after reviewing my qualifications and my father's records. Every decision required outside approval, public reporting, and conflict review. Rebecca was cooperating with investigators and rebuilding her life away from her father's control. Marcus remained suspended while the legal process continued. Vincent had stepped away from day-to-day authority during the investigation. He remained involved only under independent oversight, with no access to evidence or witness decisions. He never offered me another secret payment. He never sent assistance without asking. Some mornings, he came to my office with questions he once would have answered for everyone else. At first, I answered only the ones connected to the foundation. Then, slowly, we began talking about smaller things. Coffee. My father's terrible Sunday music. The difference between protecting someone and standing beside them. Whatever grew between us began there, not with possession, rescue, or debt, but with permission. He had ruled the city by making people afraid to tell him no. I changed his world by becoming the first person who could say it, walk away, and still leave the door open for a better answer.